Hey, Jules Blessed Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. This is part 2 on the Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps, step number 10. Oddly, I put in part 1 yesterday, but it did not ever come to fruition. It just sat there and never quite got published. I don't know why. It showed the little box saying in progress, but to no avail. So I actually just unloaded it and reloaded it. So you're going to be finding these back to back. And that's okay. But just know that I actually had part 1 yesterday, and that today is Thursday, and that this is part 2. And when you read part 1, which is me giving a scenario that was difficult for me, and I essentially resolved and found peace through applying the 10th step, I do want to do the follow-up to tell you that that person actually stepped up. And I did take time. I went back this morning, and this will make sense if you listen to part 1. But I went back this morning and just did a very general apology again, saying, you know what, that was not your issue, it was mine. Forgive me for being short with you. I was just in physical pain. I totally accept it's my own situation, and I will absolutely do what's required of me. And I'm really sorry if I was negative in any way. The person was like, no, it's not a problem, whatever. But you could tell there was some hurt there, which I totally understand. So I went about my day, felt great about everything. The end of the day came. This person was literally leaving work and pulled me aside and said, hey, privately, I would like to help you with that. And I was like, are you sure? I mean, seriously, I can absolutely do it. It's not your problem. And she was like, no, I policy-wise shouldn't, but in my heart, I feel called to help. Well, that's exactly what I was praying for. What? I was like, Father, you are so yourself in a really good way. Stay that way. That's exactly what I was praying for, that somebody would just see the human element instead of policy. And it was so beautiful that she did. So I just wanted to give a shout out, because when you listen to the other one, you'll go, wow, that person came around. That is amazing. Dare I say, miraculous. It was absolutely miraculous. All right, so I said this part 2 would be me going into more depth on what the 12-step program is. Forgive me, the 10th step of the 12-step program. And what I wanted to make clear was that it's the 10th step for a reason. It presumes that you have worked through the other steps and that you're in a place to be able to practice and implement the 10th step. So I just want to kind of give that disclaimer, if you will. So this is from verywellmind.com. And it's called A Study of Step 10, the 12-step program. And what that step basically is taking personal inventory and promptly admitting when one is wrong. So important. And you'll get that from the other video as well. So it reads, Step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we are wrong, promptly admitted it. Whether you work in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Gamblers Anonymous, all the Anonymouses, or Al-Anon, which is for people who live with addicts, Step 10 may be one of the least popular of the 12 steps. Hilarious. Why? It's simply no fun to be wrong and then have to admit it. Isn't that straight up? So true. And yet there is so much freedom in having the grace to do it, which is what I was sharing in the other video. You know, from the moment I decided to look at myself and consider what my part was, instead of saying they, and look at what they did, I had a ton of freedom. Because one, I was empowered to do something about it. I was empowered to make a choice for me and decide what part was mine. And there was a lot of power in that, and a lot of freedom in knowing that I was going to have the grace to do the right thing. Even though it wasn't all my issue, the part that I can control, I was called to do. And I was able to, and I was so happy. So it says, but without this step, progress towards recovery can not only cease, it can actually lose ground. Here we talk about some of the benefits of step 10, along with the ways you can incorporate it into your daily life. Even if you're not a 12-stepper, this is just a great practice. Just as a human being, it's a great practice to evaluate your day. See if you were really accountable and being your best self. And if you weren't, is there any chance that you could amend the situation, if not make amends to the individual that you may have hurt? All right, so here are the 12 steps defined. So according to Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12 steps are as follows. And again, it's pretty important that you work your way through the steps. And Lord knows there's a gazillion ways to do it, from videos online to books about it to journals to, of course, the actual programs, which right now are brilliant because they're on Zoom and you know, you can totally voyeur through them if you're a person who's just not that comfortable initially, until you are comfortable. The other thing is because they're around the clock and all over the world, you have a neat opportunity to choose a gazillion meetings and also meetings with focus. So whatever your particular struggle is, of course, not just from the overall umbrella of whether it's alcohol or food or sex or whatever it is you're struggling with, but within that, there are very specific meetings. So, well, I'll say I'm a compulsive overeater. Within Overeaters Anonymous, there are meetings for Christian overeaters, for anorexic overeaters, for bulimic overeaters, for, you know, vegan overeaters, for 200-pounders. I mean, like on and on. So it can get very specific to meet your needs. Anyway, number 1 was we admitted we were powerless over blank. You fill in the blank, and that your life has become unmanageable as a result of it. That is not too hard. That is not too hard. The harder part is what are you going to do about it? So number 2 was come to believe that a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity. A lot of people panic and think it's God. Though it certainly is God for many, it can very well just be a group of people or an individual living the way that you want. And you believe in following that, you could be restored to sanity. Number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So people often will say, but I don't even believe in God. Like, can I even do the 12 steps? Well, it's the God of your understanding. If you don't have a God and that's your understanding, then you simply find something, again, that you can admire or understand, that you are willing daily to say, I'm going to turn this over. So a friend of mine, I had called this morning and said that I was willing to be their accountability partner. And I recognized that they were struggling. And I said, you are welcome to text me all day long. We're in different time zones. And let me know, what are you going to choose to eat right now? Where are you? And why do you feel out of control or threatened by your circumstance? Like, just accountability. I'm not going to fix her. I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to overly advise. I'm just there. And sometimes just knowing that somebody's there is enough, you know, to give courage in the moment to change the behavior. Okay, number 4, and I just want to go back 1 second. Often the short form for 1, 2, and 3 is I can't, God can, and I'm going to let him. Number 4, this is the beginning of what I was talking about. You make a fearless and searching moral inventory of yourself. What got you to where you are? What have you done under the premise of whatever that addiction or behavior is? And you literally just go for broke on writing down everything you know about that and how you've acted out in your life as a result of it. And then after you have your tremendous list, and again, there's a ton of books, journals, articles, YouTube, so many things to teach you, even the questions and the list of questions. Like for me, it would be Overeaters Anonymous, but at OA.org, it has a whole list of smart questions to ask yourself to really delve deep in step 4. Step 5, once you have delved it in honestly to step 4, you admit to God, which again, that's cool. He knows your whole story anyway. Might as well say it out loud. to yourself. Again, a really hard one sometimes, to just be completely honest with yourself, and to some other human being. Again, that could be a counselor, it could be a priest, it could be someone that you simply meet on the street and say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? I have to say this out loud to somebody. It does not have to be a husband or a wife or somebody that you are so afraid you will disappoint or judge you. It could be a civilian of any kind. But you want another human being that you can admit the exact nature of your wrongs. Number 6, finally, you're ready to surrender again. So this complements number 3, where you say you're going to turn your will over to the care of God. Number 6 is you're entirely ready to have God remove the defects of character. Whatever those behaviors are, they don't serve you, so they're considered a defect. Finally, number 7, you humbly ask, again, that God of your understanding to remove those shortcomings. Number 8, this is really hard for people. You actually make a list of the people you have harmed as a result of practicing your disease. And you become willing to make amends to all of them. You become willing. It doesn't mean you can do it in the moment. Some of those people may not even be alive. Some of those people, it might be far too hard to reach out or even seek them. You don't even know where they are anymore. But you have a willingness in your heart. So again, that kind of goes back to number 2, where you came to believe that a power greater than yourself might restore you to sanity. And in number 3, you're making that decision to turn it over to the care of God, even though you don't necessarily understand God or have any idea how he's going to fix your circumstance. But you have a willingness to do it because you've seen or heard of millions and millions go before you successfully. So you have a willingness based on their success to say, well, it worked for them. I guess I'm willing to trust that it'll work for me. Okay, so you make that list of persons you have harmed, and you just become willing to make amends. Number 9, this is very difficult for people, but it's so important that it's 2 parts. You make those direct amends to such people whenever possible, but this is the caveat, and it's so, so important, except when to do so would injure them or others. When you knock on the door of your ex, and he has a beautiful wife and children, and you're crying your little head off and saying, oh, I just wanted to tell you I was sorry for that time that we practiced bestiality and it was against your faith. It's probably like not the best thing to bring up in the moment. Sometimes if you've stolen from the store and stuff, and that store may not even be in business anymore, but sometimes the amends is actually just send or donate the amount of money that you kind of have a sense that you stole. So it's not always directly to that person, but you can make an amends with the same action to others, and the universe will cancel out your debt, you know? And finally, after all of that, the 12 Steps program is very kind. It allows you to take your time. It expects you to keep moving through the steps, but you do it for yourself, and no one's pushing. It's not threatening. You never have to like stand up in front of a group and talk if you're not comfortable. It's nothing like that. But it is important that you actually work the steps in order, because they build on each other and they give you the courage to finally do whatever that next step is. So when you finally get to number 10, presumably you've surrendered several times a day is mostly the case. You've investigated your part in whatever your actions were regarding your disease. You've attempted to make amends to the people that you can. And so you've really done all the hard work. But in order to keep your program and to keep your sanity and to keep your serenity and whatever it is you're abstaining from, you really need to practice every day a microcosm or a very small condensed version of steps 1 through 9. And those come in 9, 10, and 11. So, forgive me, 10, 11, and 12. So number 10, it says that you continued to take personal inventory. Yeah, it's great that you fixed what you did in 1st grade and 10th grade and your freshman year in college, and all of that's great. But most likely those people aren't around anymore, and it's not your daily life anymore. Yet, many of the behaviors that you practiced at that time will inevitably rear their ugly head for whatever reason again, and others will fall victim to whatever your actions are. So you continue to take that personal moral inventory, and when you are wrong, you promptly admit it, which is what my first video was telling you. I was in a situation, I immediately started saying, well, they, and all the finger pointing, and they were the problem. And then God very gently showed me what my part was. And finally, I had to get back to me and say, what was my part in that? How could I have acted different? And for what I did do, what amends do I owe? And that came in the form of writing a brief email, as well as a verbal apology that I followed through with this morning. And I was really grateful, because things like that are always a double gift. It probably restored some faith in me for those people that I was humbly enough to ask forgiveness from. But for myself, it was very freeing as well, because I knew I had cleaned up my side of the street. And that's a really, really big one. But it's kind of like going to confession, and you probably know I'm Catholic by now. And, you know, it's like, how many times can I go to confession for the same sin? And it's like, for as long as you're breathing, you're welcome to go again and again and again and again and again. And in the 12-step program, you can talk about whatever topic it is you need to talk about until you don't need to talk about it anymore. You know, and that's up to you. And so we will falter again, and that's why I really appreciated it. It immediately came to mind to me. You've got to reflect on this and do your 10-step inventory, and you probably owe an amends. Every once in a while, people owe an amends to themselves, which certainly when I end up binge eating, and I'm a total glutton, and I've hurt my body, like physically hurt myself with all my food, I owe myself an amends, literally. And I do that as well. Okay, so number 11 was sought through prayer and meditation to improve that conscious contact with the God of our understanding. So again, how can we be more in line with the direction that we want to go? And then you pray only for the knowledge of His will for you and the power to carry it out. That's a daily for me. God, give me the courage to do that which is expected of me. I pray that all day long. Give me the courage to do that which is expected of me, whatever is in my inbox. And He's really, really good about it. So it's a continued growth there. And finally, number 12, presuming you've done the steps, you're comfortable, you have a sense of what your higher power is, and you know what direction you're going in. Number 12 reads, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. Like really an innate understanding that life is bigger than the pettiness of a bag of M&Ms. That life is bigger than the fifth of whiskey or whatever. So having had that spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, we tried to carry the message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And again, you fill in the blank. But, you know, even me, I'm talking only about my situation right now. I'm talking about step 10 because of an incident I had yesterday, because I recognize it as a tool for daily life. I am inadvertently carrying this message to those who still suffer, because I'm letting you guys know that there is help out there, that it's free. In all the 12-step programs, you only donate if you have something to donate when you're in a better place, right? Because so often we come to the door just literally with nothing, and we're still accepted and loved until we build our way back. And when we build our way back, the expectation is that we give to others. Okay, what is step 10? In step 10, personal inventory refers to emotional disturbances that can trigger a person to return to misusing drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, whatever it is. That's why you do the step 10. Because if you don't, those things build up. And in my case, it's something I inevitably will eat over. Because I wasn't going to be as comfortable going back to work today, because I had all that on me from yesterday. And I was already raging in my head about what I could do and what I couldn't do and how I could hide and all the games, all the sick. And luckily, I did that 10th step inventory. I figured it out. I made the amends, you know, before I even went to sleep. I did part 2 of that amends. And what a much better day. It's not always going to be perfect, and some people are terrible and they're going to reject you. But you'll know that you did your part. So it says, watching for these disturbances on a daily basis and taking a daily inventory is an important part of recovery. No, it doesn't mean you have to fill out a form and write out the thing. No, it's just in your heart. What is weighing on you? Oh, yeah, I was super rude too. And in that video, it was really funny because I said I was actually rude to my dogs and my bird. But that was weighing on me because I think of them as people. In a good place, I say, excuse me, and how are you guys? And come see mama. And in a bad place, I was saying, shut up and don't do that again. And what, like it got so ugly so fast. And so I did an amends with them as well. I love those little guys. I was just in a really bad place. So it says, step 10 helps to keep the spiritual house clean. And that's what we have, our soul. All humans are bound to make mistakes and errors. Owning up to those wrongs quickly settles the issue. Rather than weighing on the conscience or building up to produce greater consequence, the mistake is corrected promptly and problem is nipped in the bud. So nobody likes to admit being wrong, but it's absolutely necessary to maintain spiritual progress, especially for those in recovery. So the benefits of step 10. Step 10 is another process that seems on the surface to be difficult to face, but in actuality, it is as much a benefit to the one admitting the wrong as it is to the person who was wronged. And that was certainly true for me. When God tapped me on the shoulder and said, Juliana, how's your part in that? I was like, wait, what? Whoey, whaty? My part? But in doing that, it gave me a chance to reflect. And before I knew it, I went from guilt, shame, and oh my goodness, to the freedom of saying I am re-empowered because I have next steps on taking care of this problem. So by promptly facing mistakes and taking responsibility for them, it prevents situations from festering into resentments and anger that can become real problems. And I would add fear as well. For example, suppose you say something insensitive or crude, and as soon as it pops out of your mouth, you realize it was not the right thing to say to that person. As step 10 suggests, you apologize immediately and tell the person that you were wrong, and you should never have said it, like in the moment. But if you don't have the grace in the moment, you get back to them as soon as possible, like hopefully that day. Kind of goes back to that premise of never going to bed angry, right? Then you can walk away knowing that you've done your part to make it right. If the other person wants to hold on to it and remain angry about it, it is their problem, not yours. You know you've done your part. So the steps are to help you make progress. In the end, you apologize for your spiritual benefit more than for their benefit. When we forgive others, the beauty of it is it frees us. If it helps them, great. But it frees us to be more whole and to be at peace, which is lovely. Here are some practical ways to apply step 10 to daily life. 1, admit you were wrong. The act of quickly trying to right a wrong can keep your mental house clean and prevent ego, which some people refer to as edging God out. Prevent ego from getting in the way of step 10. Pretty sure I have a JulesBlessedVegan video on ego. You can put it in there. Take a daily inventory. You just set aside time each day to meditate and reflect on your day, both the good and the bad. It's so easy when you're just driving home anyway, right? Here are a few questions to consider asking yourself. Again, I don't know what your personality is, but I cannot do another list. I cannot do another requirement where I'm supposed to go step by step on anything. So I just kind of go these through my head and see how it goes. So number 1, were you dishonest or resentful with anyone? Did you say or do anything that would warrant an apology? Have I been worrying about yesterday or tomorrow? That's a problem. Both those things are a problem. You're supposed to stay in the present, right? Did I allow myself to become obsessed about anything? Have I allowed myself to become too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired. And I have about 5 videos on HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. You can look those up and I'll teach you all about how to avoid acting out when you are those things. Do I suffer from any physical, mental, or spiritual problems? What steps can you take to do better tomorrow? My plan right away was, what could I do to show up at my workplace prepared to make that amends, prepared to go through the proper channels for what my issue was, what really bothered me yesterday, and to just make better choices. And what do I have to be grateful for today? An attitude of gratitude, and I believe I have a video on that as well, is so helpful, so helpful. Okay? So, of course, these articles always come from somewhere, and this says, like every part of the 12-step program, step 10 takes commitment. As you work daily to take personal inventory, admit when you're wrong, and be your best self along the journey toward lasting recovery. Amen. Amen. All right, peeps, I hope that helps you out. Again, it doesn't matter if you're a 12-stepper or not. It's just a good thing to do. You know, it'll just ease your life no matter what. I'll include that in the description of the video. All right, I'm exhausted beyond belief. I do not get to go to bed yet, but I'm happy to wrap this up. I just wanted to check in with JBV. Again, there's 2 videos, but watch them at your leisure. Like if you like, join us if you haven't. Subscribe. Let me know in the comments below how I may support you. And until we talk again, best of all, know that you're blessed.